Introduction. Welcome to Stop Negative Thinking Forever, an audiobook crafted not just to inspire you momentarily, but to permanently shift the way you see yourself, your life, and the endless possibilities that unfold the moment you learn to take back control of your own mind. Because it is not the circumstances of our lives that most often defeat us, but the unchecked, unchallenged patterns of thought that quietly sabotage our strength, our peace, and our ability to move forward with confidence. Negative thinking is a habit that sneaks into our lives without permission, weaving itself into our internal dialogue, coloring our perceptions, and convincing us, slowly but surely, that our fears are truths, that our doubts are wisdom, and that every hope we dare to entertain is just another opportunity to be disappointed once again. But what you must understand, and what you will come to embody through this journey, is that negative thinking is not your natural state. It is a learned behavior, survival mechanism gone rogue, a script that was written somewhere along the way that you now have the power and the right to rewrite. This audiobook is not built on shallow advice or fleeting positivity. It is built on deep transformation, on the understanding that in order to truly stop negative thinking forever, you must go beneath the surface. You must confront the roots of your fears, your doubts, and your inner criticisms, and you must begin the deliberate and courageous process of retraining your mind to see the world and yourself through a lens of strength, hope, and possibility. You will learn how negativity often masks itself as realism, how it disguises its voice to sound like caution or wisdom or preparation for the worst. But in reality, it is an anchor that holds you down, a shadow that shrinks your dreams, a slow erosion of your self-belief. And through understanding its tricks, you will gain the clarity and the power to unhook yourself from its grip once and for all. You will discover how to identify the specific thoughts that sabotage you, how to catch the tiny moments where negativity tries to creep back in, and how to not merely resist it, but to replace it, not with blind optimism, but with grounded, fierce, unshakable belief in yourself and in the possibility of better outcomes. This journey is not about pretending that pain or challenges do not exist. It is about realizing that your thoughts about pain, your expectations around challenge, your internal stories about your own worth and future are what create the true prison. And that once you recognize this, you hold the keys to set yourself free. As you listen, as you absorb, as you begin to integrate the practices and perspectives shared in these chapters, you will not only feel the gradual weakening of negativity's hold on your mind, you will feel yourself growing stronger, lighter, braver, and more open to the life that has been waiting for you beyond the fog of fear and doubt. Negative thinking has robbed enough days, enough dreams, enough peace from your life already. It does not get to write the next chapter unless you allow it. And today, with this commitment, you have taken the first step to reclaiming your mind, your emotions, your future, and your power. So breathe deeply. Open your heart to the possibility that change is not only available to you, but inevitable if you persist, and know that you are not broken. You are not hopeless. You are not destined to live in the shadows of your fears. You are a mind under reconstruction, a spirit rising from old limitations, a life in the making. This is your time. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Understand the true nature of negative thinking. Before you can ever hope to break free from the grip of negative thinking, you must first understand it. Not just at a surface level, but at its roots, because without understanding why your mind defaults to fear, doubt, and criticism, every attempt to overcome it will feel like a battle fought in the dark, exhausting and endless, and you will continue to wonder why your efforts seem to slip away when you need them the most. Negative thinking is not proof that you're broken, weak, or somehow incapable of positivity. It is a survival mechanism that has been wired into the human brain over thousands of years, an ancient system built to protect you from danger, from failure, from pain. And while it served an important role when survival truly meant life or death in the wild, in the modern world, where physical threats have largely been replaced by emotional and psychological ones. That same mechanism often misfires, interpreting uncertainty, challenge, or change as mortal threats, and flooding your mind with doubt, fear, and worst-case scenarios as a way of trying to keep you safe. Your brain, at its most primitive level, is designed not to make you happy but to keep you alive, and it believes that by constantly reminding you of what could go wrong, by focusing on potential dangers, by magnifying risks and minimizing opportunities, it is doing its job. But the tragedy is that in doing so, it steals from you the very aliveness you're meant to experience, shrinking your world, dulling your ambitions, and convincing you to settle for a life that is smaller, safer, and infinitely less fulfilling than the one you are capable of living. This negativity bias, the brain's natural tendency to give more weight to bad experiences than good ones, to remember criticism more vividly than praise, to notice threats more quickly than opportunities, is not your fault, but it is your responsibility to overcome, because while you did not design the wiring, you are the one living within it. And if you do not take conscious control, it will quietly, persistently, and relentlessly steer your life according to its outdated, fear-driven rules. It is also important to understand that negative thinking is not simply a reaction to events. It is a deeply ingrained habit, a mental reflex that has been reinforced over time through repetition, through experience, and often through environments that modeled fear, scarcity, and self-doubt as the natural way to see the world. And just like any habit, the more you practice it, the stronger and more automatic it becomes, until it feels less like a choice and more like an identity. But habits, no matter how deeply embedded, are not destiny, and identities, no matter how long held, are not unchangeable. They are simply patterns, loops of thought and feeling that can be broken, rewritten, and replaced with intention, persistence, and the right strategies. And that process begins with a simple but powerful act of seeing negative thinking for what it truly is: a learned behavior, a protective mechanism, a relic of survival, not a reflection of your worth, your intelligence, or your potential. When you begin to see your negative thoughts not as truths but as mental habits, you create space between the thought and the reaction, space to choose differently, to respond with intention instead of reflex, to gently but firmly say, "I see you, but I no longer choose to be ruled by you." And in that space, resilience grows, optimism blooms, and the possibility of a new, freer life begins to take root. So as you move forward through this audiobook, carry this understanding with you. Negative thinking is not a character flaw. It is not a life sentence. And it is not a reflection of some hidden inadequacy within you. It is simply a pattern your mind learned to favor, and anything that has been learned can be unlearned. Anything that has been reinforced can be reprogrammed, and anything that has been ruling you can be reclaimed by the powerful, conscious, unbreakable choice to build something better. Chapter 2. Break free from the mental habits that trap you. Once you understand that negative thinking is a habit rather than a truth, the next step is to recognize the countless small ways it weaves itself into the fabric of your daily life, creating loops of self-sabotage so subtle, so familiar, that you often do not even realize you are reinforcing the very mindset you're trying to escape, because habits of thought, much like habits of action, operate most powerfully in the background, repeating themselves quietly until their influence shapes your mood, your energy, your decisions, and ultimately your destiny. Negative thinking does not always arrive in loud, obvious ways. Often, it slips in through tiny cracks. The way you immediately imagine the worst-case scenario when faced with uncertainty, the way you criticize yourself for small mistakes with words far harsher than you would ever direct at another person, the way you minimize your victories and magnify your failures, the way you anticipate disappointment even in moments of hope, and each of these seemingly small, almost automatic thought patterns feed into a larger cycle that keeps you anchored in fear, doubt, and emotional exhaustion. To break free from these mental traps, you must first become a quiet observer of your own mind, not judging or resisting what you find, but simply noticing with compassionate awareness the habitual directions your thoughts take when you're tired, stressed, uncertain, or afraid, because awareness is always the first step to freedom. You cannot change what you refuse to see, and you cannot heal what you are unwilling to name. Start by paying attention to the themes that dominate your internal dialogue. Are you constantly assuming that things will go wrong, even when you have no evidence? Are you rehearsing failure before you even begin? Are you interpreting neutral events through a lens of personal inadequacy or blame? Are you dismissing compliments and amplifying criticisms, no matter how small or unwarranted? Recognizing these patterns is not about blaming yourself or feeling guilty for the ways your mind has learned to protect itself. It is about stepping out of unconscious reactivity and into conscious choice, because every time you notice a negative spiral starting, every time you catch yourself sinking into familiar patterns of self-doubt, fear, or bitterness, you create a powerful opportunity to interrupt it, to redirect your energy, to practice a new way of thinking that builds you up rather than tears you down. Interrupting these spirals can be simple but powerful. It can be as basic as saying to yourself, "This is just a thought, not a fact," or asking, "What else might be true in this moment?" Or even just pausing to take a deep breath, grounding yourself back into the present instead of following the mind into imagined disasters that have not and may never occur. The key is consistency, because your mind will naturally want to return to its old grooves, its familiar highways of negativity. And it will take time, patience, and persistence to carve out new, healthier mental pathways, but every interruption, no matter how small, is an act of rebellion against fear, an act of loyalty to your future self, an act of claiming your mind as your own rather than leaving it to be shaped by unconscious fear and outdated programming. Breaking free from mental habits that trap you is not about achieving perfect positivity overnight. It is about making a daily, sometimes hourly, sometimes moment-to-moment commitment to choose a higher thought, a gentler interpretation, a more empowering story, again and again, until the new habit of believing in your strength becomes more natural than the old habit of doubting it. Freedom from negative thinking is not won in one grand battle. It is built quietly, persistently, lovingly, in the small moments when you choose not to believe everything your fear tells you, when you choose to speak to yourself with compassion instead of condemnation, when you choose to imagine a better outcome instead of rehearsing defeat, and when you choose again and again to trust that your mind, like your body, can heal, can grow, can evolve beyond its old limitations into something stronger, clearer, and infinitely more beautiful. Chapter 3. Reprogram your self-talk. If you want to stop negative thinking forever, you must not only interrupt the spirals of fear and doubt when they appear. You must go deeper. You must transform the voice that speaks inside your mind every day, the voice that narrates your experiences, the voice that defines how you see yourself and what you believe you deserve. Because your self-talk, whether you realize it or not, is the architect of your emotional reality, the invisible hand shaping your confidence, your resilience, and ultimately the entire shape of your life. Most of the negative self-talk that lives inside your mind today was not consciously chosen. It was absorbed, inherited, learned through repetition from parents, teachers, media, and painful experiences. And because it has been with you for so long, it often feels like truth, like objective reality, like an unavoidable part of who you are. But the truth is that self-talk is not fate. It is a habit, a pattern, a set of mental scripts that can be rewritten when you decide that you're no longer willing to be the enemy of your own spirit. Reprogramming your self-talk is not about repeating hollow affirmations you do not believe. It is about building a relationship with yourself rooted in respect, encouragement, and hope. It is about speaking to yourself the way you would speak to a dear friend who is struggling. It is about refusing to allow your mind to become a place of cruelty, shame, and relentless judgment. It begins with awareness, noticing the language you use when you speak silently to yourself throughout the day, noticing the harshness, the pessimism, the exaggeration of flaws and failures, and then, instead of accepting those words as truth, choosing to challenge them, choosing to ask, is this thought actually true? Is it helpful? Would I say this to someone I love? You are not required to believe every thought that crosses your mind, and you are not obligated to repeat old patterns simply because they feel familiar. You have the right and the power to rewrite your internal dialogue into something that lifts you instead of crushing you, that builds you instead of breaking you, that fuels your courage instead of feeding your fears. Begin by replacing critical, absolute statements with gentler, more accurate ones. Instead of "I always fail," choose "I am still learning, and every step teaches me something valuable." Instead of "I'm not good enough," choose "I am growing stronger every day, and I honor the progress I've made." Instead of "I can't handle this," choose "I have faced hard things before, and I'll find a way through this too." Speak to yourself with hope even when you feel hopeless, with encouragement even when you feel defeated, because the words you repeat inside your mind are not mere decorations. They are instructions, they are blueprints, they are the seeds from which your emotions, your actions, and your destiny will grow. Understand that at first, positive self-talk may feel unnatural, may feel fake, may feel like you're lying to yourself, but that is only because your mind is still wired for the old patterns, the old stories. And just as it took time and repetition for negative self-talk to become automatic, it will take time and repetition for the new patterns to take root. But if you persist, if you keep speaking life, even when your emotions have not yet caught up, you will find that slowly, steadily, something shifts inside you. One day, without warning, you will catch yourself encouraging yourself automatically, believing in your own ability without forcing it, standing taller not because the world changed, but because the story you tell yourself about who you are has changed. And in that moment, you will realize that you are not broken. You never were. You were simply carrying old voices that were never meant to define you. So choose today and every day to become the guardian of your own mind, the protector of your own heart, the architect of your own future, and let every word you speak to yourself be a brick in the foundation of a life built not on fear, but on courage, compassion, and the unshakable belief that you are worthy of every good thing still ahead. Chapter 4. Visualize positive outcomes and expect the best. If you truly want to break the cycle of negative thinking, you must go beyond simply stopping destructive thoughts and take the next courageous step. You must dare to plant new seeds, to intentionally shape your mind to expect good things, to believe in your ability to create success, to rehearse positive outcomes so vividly and consistently that your mind begins to accept them not as wild fantasies, but as natural possibilities. Because your mind, powerful as it is, cannot tell the difference between imagination and reality. It simply follows the pictures you show it and the emotions you attach to those pictures. For too long, perhaps without even realizing it, you have been rehearsing disaster. You have been playing out worst-case scenarios in your mind like unwelcome movies. You have been preparing for failure, betrayal, loss, rejection. And every time you imagine those outcomes, every time you feel the fear that accompanies them, you reinforce the pathways that make negative thinking feel automatic and inevitable. But the same mental power that has been used against you can be reclaimed and redirected toward your highest good, toward your greatest potential, toward the version of your life where you rise instead of fall, where you heal instead of break, where you achieve instead of retreat. And it all begins with the simple but profound decision to consciously visualize what you want instead of what you fear. Visualization is not about naive fantasy or magical thinking. It is about training your mind to believe in new possibilities, about giving your brain new reference points for hope, success, strength, and fulfillment. Because what you mentally rehearse, you emotionally prepare for. And what you emotionally prepare for, you move toward with greater ease and greater resilience. Take time each day, even if it is just a few minutes, to close your eyes, slow your breathing, and see yourself succeeding. See yourself staying calm under pressure. See yourself rising after failure. See yourself making the bold choice when fear tries to whisper in your ear, because the more vividly you imagine your victories, the more familiar they become to your mind. And the more your mind begins to treat those outcomes as expected rather than unlikely. Attach emotion to these visualizations. Feel the pride, the gratitude, the calm confidence of the version of yourself who refuses to be ruled by fear, who walks into new challenges with trust in their own strength, who welcomes growth even when it comes wrapped in difficulty. Because it is emotion that cements these images into your subconscious, that transforms fleeting hope into steady belief. And as you practice this daily, you will notice subtle but powerful shifts. You will begin to approach opportunities with greater openness. You will notice solutions where before you only saw problems. You will find yourself speaking more kindly to yourself, believing a little more quickly in your own worth, recovering a little more easily when things don't go as planned. Not because life suddenly became easier, but because you rewired your mind to meet life with expectation, resilience, and hope instead of fear, defeat, and doubt. You will realize that expecting the best is not arrogance. It is courage. It is wisdom. It is an act of rebellion against the cynicism and negativity that the world tries to feed you. And it is a declaration that you choose to move through life not as a victim of circumstance, but as an active participant in your own becoming. So visualize boldly, hope fiercely, dream widely, and expect the best. Not because life owes you anything, but because you owe it to yourself to step fully into the life you are capable of living, to meet each day not with dread but with excitement, not with fear but with faith, not with hesitation but with the quiet, steady certainty that good things are not only possible, they are on their way. Chapter 5. Guard your energy and choose your inputs wisely. If you are serious about stopping negative thinking forever, you must understand that your mind does not operate in isolation, because no matter how strong you become internally, the environment you place yourself in, the conversations you engage with, the media you consume, the people you allow close to your heart, will either nourish the mindset you are building or slowly, quietly, poison it. And it is your responsibility, not anyone else's, to fiercely protect the energy that sustains your growth. Energy is not an unlimited resource, and mental resilience is not built in a vacuum. It is strengthened or weakened daily by the inputs you choose to expose yourself to, and if you allow yourself to be surrounded by negativity, whether through endless complaints, fear-driven news cycles, toxic conversations, or environments soaked in cynicism and hopelessness, no amount of internal work will shield you from the steady erosion that those influences bring. You must become discerning, not paranoid. You must recognize that guarding your energy is not about cutting yourself off from the world or pretending that negativity does not exist, but about choosing wisely what you feed your mind, just as you would choose wisely what you feed your body if you were serious about your health. Because what you consume mentally becomes the soil in which your thoughts grow. And if you plant your seeds in poison ground, you cannot be surprised when the harvest is bitter. Start by evaluating the voices you listen to every day, whether they come from your social circle, your workplace, your social media feed, your television screen, or even the books and music you absorb without much thought, and ask yourself honestly, do these voices lift me higher, challenge me to grow, remind me of my strength, or do they pull me into fear, judgment, and smallness? Understand that negativity is contagious, that even when you think you are simply observing it, you are absorbing it, and that proximity to fear, bitterness, and defeatism slowly wears down even the strongest minds if left unchecked. You have the right to set boundaries without guilt. You have the right to curate your environment like your future depends on it, because it does, and you have the right to walk away from conversations, relationships, habits, and influences that consistently drag you back into the mental patterns you are working so hard to outgrow. Surround yourself with inputs that fuel your courage instead of your fear, with ideas that expand your hope instead of shrinking your vision, with people who remind you that greatness is not a rare gift, but a choice made daily by those brave enough to believe in something better, even when the evidence is scarce. Fill your environment with reminders of the strength you are building. Listen to voices that inspire you. Read words that stretch your thinking toward possibility. Create spaces that reflect the peace, focus, and determination you want to cultivate inside yourself, and treat your mental space with the same reverence you would give to a sacred garden, knowing that whatever you plant, water, and nurture will grow. Choosing your inputs wisely is not an act of weakness or avoidance. It is an act of power, of maturity, of deep loyalty to the life you're trying to create. Because protecting your mind is protecting your future, and no dream, no goal, no transformation can survive for long in an environment designed to kill it. So guard your energy fiercely, not because you are fragile, but because you are powerful, because your mind is precious, because your future deserves a foundation strong enough to weather every storm, and because you have finally realized that you are the gatekeeper of your own destiny. And from this moment on, only that which strengthens you, only that which fuels you, only that which honors your journey is allowed to stay. Chapter 6. Stay strong when negativity resurfaces. No matter how much work you do to rewire your thinking, no matter how deeply you commit to building a positive, resilient mind, there will be moments when negativity resurfaces, when old doubts sneak in through the cracks, when fear, frustration, or sadness knock on the door of your spirit once again. And in these moments, it is vital to remember that the return of negativity is not a sign of failure, not a sign that you have undone your progress, not a signal that you're destined to live in those old patterns forever, but simply a reminder that you are human, that healing is not linear, and that resilience is built not in avoiding struggle, but in how you respond to it when it inevitably appears. Staying strong when negativity resurfaces begins with compassion, with the ability to meet yourself exactly where you are, without judgment, without panic, without the harsh, critical voice that says you should be beyond this by now, because progress is not measured by the absence of hardship, but by the speed and strength with which you rise when you fall, by the wisdom you apply when the old voices try to reclaim territory you have already fought to free. When you notice negativity creeping back in, whether it shows up as self-doubt, fear, comparison, impatience, or hopelessness, the first step is not to fight it or suppress it, but to name it, to see it clearly, to say to yourself, this is negativity speaking, not truth, and by naming it, you pull it out of the shadows and strip it of some of its unconscious power. Then, gently but firmly, you remind yourself of what you know. That a negative thought is not a command, that a negative emotion is not a prophecy, that discomfort is not danger, and that you're strong enough to sit with whatever feelings arise without collapsing into them, without letting them define you or dictate your choices. Sometimes staying strong means pausing to breathe when your mind wants to spiral. Sometimes it means stepping back and asking yourself better questions. Is this thought helping me or hurting me? What would a stronger version of me choose to believe right now? What is still possible, even if I am afraid? Because strength is not about never feeling fear or doubt. It is about choosing a higher response when fear and doubt appear. It is also important to have a personal bounce-back plan, a set of small, intentional actions you can turn to when you feel yourself slipping. Whether it's journaling your thoughts to separate fear from fact, going for a walk to reconnect with your body and your breath, reaching out to a friend who reminds you of your worth, revisiting a list of past victories, or simply sitting quietly and affirming to yourself, again and again, that storms pass, that emotions move, that you're bigger than this moment of struggle. Understand that every time you ride out a wave of negativity without surrendering to it, you're training your mind to trust your leadership. You're building emotional stamina. You are deepening the foundation of resilience that will carry you through challenges far greater than the ones you face today. You will begin to see that negativity losing its grip on you is not a dramatic event marked by fireworks and fanfare. It is a quiet evolution, a slow strengthening, a subtle but powerful shift where the spaces between setbacks grow longer, where the weight of fear grows lighter, where your default reactions grow wiser, calmer, stronger. So when negativity resurfaces, do not despair, do not declare defeat. Simply see it as another opportunity to practice, another opportunity to stand taller, Another opportunity to become the person who no longer needs perfect conditions to keep moving forward, the person who trusts themselves deeply even in the fog. The person who knows that every challenge is another stone laid in the unshakable foundation of the life they are building. You are stronger than your doubts. You are bigger than your fears. And every time you rise after falling, you're proving that the old patterns no longer own you. You are writing a new story, and you're just getting started. Conclusion. As we reach the end of this journey together, I want you to remember that stopping negative thinking forever is not a single decision made once and never questioned again, but a lifelong practice, a commitment renewed every morning, a choice you make each time an old fear rises, each time a familiar doubt whispers in your mind, each time the shadows of the past try to convince you that your future must look the same. Because transformation is not about perfection, it is about perseverance. About choosing again and again to return to the light, even when darkness beckons you to turn away. You now understand that negative thinking is not your identity, not your destiny, not a flaw in your character, but a habit. A deeply ingrained pattern that can be seen, challenged, dismantled, and rebuilt into something far more powerful, far more honest, far more worthy of the person you are becoming. Because you were never meant to live trapped in fear, limited by doubt, or anchored to the stories of defeat you inherited or once believed. You have learned that the mind is a garden, and whatever you plant, water, and nurture will inevitably grow. So from this day forward, you have the power to plant hope instead of fear, courage instead of hesitation, trust instead of worry, and resilience instead of surrender. And as you continue to water these seeds with daily practice, with conscious choice, with fierce loyalty to the life you know you are capable of building, you will see the landscape of your inner world change, slowly at first, and then all at once. You now know that you are not required to believe every fearful thought that crosses your mind, that you can interrupt negative spirals with awareness and compassion, that you can reprogram your self-talk into a voice that lifts you instead of tears you down, and that you can visualize positive outcomes not because life will always be easy, but because you deserve to meet life with hope rather than dread, with expectation rather than resignation, with a spirit that refuses to be defined by anything less than possibility. You understand that protecting your energy is an act of self-respect, that choosing your inputs wisely is a sacred responsibility, and that surrounding yourself with voices, environments, and habits that nourish your mind is not selfish. It is necessary for survival, for growth, for the fulfillment of the dreams that still burn quietly within you even when doubt tries to smother them. And you know now that when negativity returns, as it inevitably will, it is not a sign that you have failed, but a reminder that you are still on the path, that healing and growth are journeys measured not by the absence of struggle, but by the strength, grace, and wisdom with which you move through it. Every time you catch yourself in an old pattern and choose a higher thought, every time you feel fear and still move forward, every time you fall into doubt and rise again with even a little more faith than before, you're building a life rooted in strength instead of fear, in trust instead of worry, in resilience instead of regret. You are not powerless. You are not broken. You are not destined to live as a prisoner of your own mind. You are a force in the making, a mind under reconstruction, a soul choosing to rise again and again until the old walls fall away and the life you once only dreamed of becomes the life you now live, breathe, and embody. So walk forward with courage. Speak to yourself with tenderness. Expect good things with boldness. And when doubt comes knocking, remember, you have already begun the most important journey of all. The journey back to your true power. The journey toward a life no longer ruled by fear, but liberated by choice, by hope, and by the relentless, unstoppable belief that the best is still ahead. This is your time. Own it. Live it. And never, ever look back.